Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much. Right back at you. You know, what a great team there. Thank you for the introduction, and GSK is an incredible company, not only here but around the world, supporting our healthcare system. I'm very, very grateful. I'm thrilled to be back here today alongside Minister Dunlop. I know they've all been introduced. I was hearing in the back, but what a champion when it comes to education. My parliamentary assistant for intergovernmental affairs, Will Bowman. He wears about 10 different hats, as you heard, and some of our great local members. Ministry Tangri doing a great job on the economic development file, and Pill Hill, as we call it, and my other champions, MPPs, Deepak Anand, Rudy Cazzetto, and Sharif Sabawe, and MPP Kusendova just had a little boy, adding to the PC team, so she'll be back up and running. I also want to acknowledge Mayor Parrish as well. I absolutely love the mayor. We hit it off right away, and I have to tell you, it's so nice to be able to say I love the mayor of Mississauga. I couldn't help myself. But the mayor, you know something? The mayor brought me by a present, and when people come by, they have a couple options. Either come to the big fancy office at Queen's Park, or come to my little humble little solarium that's about that wide and about 30 feet, and we have a wood burning stove. So the mayor's come over a few times, and came over with George, and George was out there chopping wood for my little wood burning stove. She came by and gave me a present, and she said, "This is going to help you chop the tariff." So I'm going to see. I told her I don't know. I think I know what it is, but I'm going to see what it is. Oh, this is beautiful, Mayor. An axe. Boy, I tell you, it's beautiful. Thank you. That means you and George have to come over this weekend. We have some wood to chop, and also the great mayor from Burlington, Marianne. Where are you? Thank you for everything you do for the folks of Burlington, and a big thank you to all the city councilors and all the elected officials here. I always tell the city councilors, I walked a mile in your shoes. The only difference is Mayor Parrish isn't as tough on you as my brother Rob was on me. So he was a tough boss to be working with. And a big thank you to Trevor. Trevor, absolute champion, has done an incredible job, and the board of directors and all the members for inviting me to speak today. The Mississauga Board of Trade plays such an important role in supporting the region's businesses and entrepreneurs, and I want to thank you all for doing what you do. Today, given that we're just a few days away from a new administration in the White House, I want to start by addressing the issue that's on every person's mind in our entire country right now. The very real threat of a 25% tariff on Canadian goods entering into the United States. Everyone in this room knows about the devastating impacts that these tariffs would have on both of our economies. And I'll tell you, folks, we just got off a cabinet meeting, and a few days ago they briefed me on the impacts. This is serious. This can affect anywhere from 250,000 to 500,000 people. So we're doing everything we can and affect many of the businesses right in this room. It could cost Ontario hundreds of thousands of jobs, as I mentioned. This is not something we can take lightly, and we're not. Last week, I went with all the premiers, and yesterday I met with them again, along with the Prime Minister in Ottawa, to continue pressing the federal government to do everything humanly possible to avoid U.S. tariffs. We agreed on the need to stand united, to take a Team Canada approach that builds on the strong relationships we have with our American friends while standing up for Canadian workers in every part of our country. As we prepare for the incoming administration, Ontario is doing our part. Over the last several months, we've met and spoken with business leaders from both sides of the border and lawmakers representing every corner of the U.S., including senators and congresspeople and governors. Literally every day they have 3 or 4 scheduled to meet, which I'm doing again after we talk here. We'll talk to a couple governors who are set to be in the cabinet secretaries down in the U.S. and advisors in the incoming U.S. administration. In these conversations, I've stood up for Ontario close economic partnership with the U.S. and pointed out the balanced, integrated two-way trade system that equally benefits both of our countries. And I think it was you, Trevor, when I heard you speaking about the trade we have. We do approximately $500 billion of trade. Yes, we are the #1 export destination to 17 states, #2 to 11 other states. As a country, we're the #1 export destination to 28 states across the country. But we're a great trading partner, and so are they. They are. At no point has any American I've ever spoken to claimed that Canadian businesses or trade with Canada is the problem. Not Republican, not Democrat, never a harsh word about Canada or the trade. Instead, I've heard significant concerns about how China is ripping off American workers and the need to get serious about fighting back. Canada can help. Over the past few weeks, you may have heard me talking about Fortress AMCAN, a renewed alliance between America and Canada that can be a beacon of stability, security, and long-term economic growth on both sides of the border. Fortress AMCAN would be a true partnership, one that respects each country as proudly independent, with alignment on shared priorities. Free, fair, balanced trade, accelerated resource development, stronger border security and energy security to power economic growth on both sides of our border. That includes making use of Ontario's abundant critical minerals. We have more critical minerals than anywhere in the world, and we're going to make sure that we get those critical minerals out of the ground as quickly as possible. And our incredible reserves of energy, including energy produced right here in Ontario to reduce Americans' reliance on China and other bad actors across the globe. You know, we're leaders in nuclear power. And if you think of it, there's, I think it's 18 CANDU reactors. We have 17 here in Ontario. We're building on that, but I understand we're going to talk about that later on, Trevor, so I'll hold my comments until we get to that topic. A critical component of Fortress AMCAN is driving economic growth for the benefit of AMCAN workers. Instead of letting China undercut our workers with unfair trade practices and poor labor standards, it's let's work together, as I say, with the United States to support workers in both countries. Our government is asking the federal government to align and streamline regulations with the United States while eliminating unfair anti-competitive taxes like the federal carbon tax and the digital service tax. We're asking Ottawa to work with industry as well as our U.S. partners to further integrate our supply chains so we can produce 1 million more AMCAN vehicles each year by 2028. We also need to substantially increase steel trade between Canada and the U.S. with the goal of hitting an increase of at least 25% more by 2028. Which is absolutely necessary so we can counter China's flooding of the AMCAN steel market. And they do it a little tricky too sometimes. They'll run it through Mexico. Mexico throws this Made in Mexico sticker on and up through the U.S. and Canada and costing American and Canadian jobs. And they do that for auto parts as well, by the way. And we need to establish cross-border partnerships between post-secondary industry and union trading centers to boost development of our skilled trade workers. while setting up cross-border recognition of professional certifications, giving Fortress AmCan improved access to our talent pool of engineers, doctors, and other professionals. We also need coordinated action to invest in, build out, and grow our integrated railroad and transportation networks. And finally, we need to build on the $45 billion in two-way trade between Ontario and the U.S. that our agribusiness and agri-food sectors do each and every single year. Just think of this, just the fruit and vegetables that we grow down in Leamington and other places. They don't realize if you go into the supermarket down in Florida or in Chicago or anywhere, you go up and buy those mini tomatoes or the cucumbers, and it says product of Master Nardi, Kingsville, Ontario. We ship $26 billion of just produce, not mentioning the food and everything else that goes with it. It's pretty staggering. So we can reduce our reliance on imports from China and build up the incredibly productive agricultural sector that both Canada and the U.S. share. Friends, I want Canada and America to be the richest, most successful, safest, most secure, and most prosperous countries on the planet. Fortress AmCan is how we can do it. It's an ambitious plan. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight, but we owe it to the workers and the businesses in Ontario and across Canada and the United States to act now. And friends, as we work towards this new partnership, we need to make sure Ontario remains a place where businesses can grow and thrive. As we navigate the uncertain times, our government is going to continue to create the environment and the conditions for businesses to succeed and jobs to grow for a long term. Now, there's a lot of people that are job creators here. I want to thank you. I want to thank Peel Region. The numbers came out. I'm not too sure if you heard. They come out about a week later from the previous month. There was 27,000 jobs created, and out of that 27,000, about 17,000 were in manufacturing. Those are big numbers. That totals to over 200,000 this year alone. And just think of last year, the manufacturers of this province created more manufacturing jobs than all 50 U.S. states combined. I guess that's why the president's upset with us, because we are creating more jobs than all 50 states combined. Folks in this room were instrumental in creating, since we've been in office, I always say government doesn't create jobs. We create the environment and the condition. If government creates jobs, we're all in deep trouble. But the people in this room, since we've taken office, have created 850,000 more jobs. When we took office, 300,000 jobs went left and went south to the border. All we saw are taillights heading to the south of the border. Now all we see are headlights coming back to invest in the people and jobs here in Ontario. And the way you do this, folks, you continue cutting red tape. We've cut over $1.1 billion of red tape, creating over 100,000 working hours. You can allocate those folks somewhere else. We're keeping taxes and fees low and invest in infrastructure that our growing communities need. We have never, ever raised a tax. You think of that, ever. When we came into office, our revenues were $150 billion. We grew those revenues up to $214 billion, $64 billion of increase in revenues, never increasing in tax. Matter of fact, we reduced the cost of doing business by $8 billion each and every single year. It's a simple theory, and it just works. The theory is put money back into people's pockets. They're going to go out. They're going to stimulate the economy. They might go out as simple as going out for dinner or buying your kids a pair of sneakers or clothes or something, doing a quick little renovation. If you start taxing them, they have less money in their pocket. They're going to go and do those things. It's the exact same for businesses, and I know all the business people in this room do the same thing. I can talk about our business. You make a little money, you put more money into your people, into infrastructure, into technology, into growth. That creates more jobs. It's a real simple theory, and it works. We're investing over $100 billion over the next 10 years to build more transit, roads, and highways to keep people and goods moving. Here in Peel Region, we're bringing fast and reliable transit to downtown Mississauga and Brampton with the construction of the Hazel-McCallion line. And I'm sure our good friend Hazel's smiling right now. And we're building Highway 413, which will reduce travel times by 30 minutes each way for Brampton and Peel Region commuters. And we're making historic investments in healthcare, including the largest investment in Ontario's history. Let me rephrase that. In Canada's history, right here in Mississauga, to build Canada's largest hospital. And I saw Carly from Trillium. Where are you, Carly? What a champion Carly is. I think the world of you, Carly, and keep going. Our government will always be here to support our businesses, workers, and families. We'll always have your backs, now more than ever. Once again, I want to thank you so much for allowing me to speak today, and may God bless the people of Ontario. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Be a quick sec, folks. All right, great.
Took the axe off, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Dangerous.
Oh, boy. So, Premier, thank you so much for taking the time. You're thanking us for having you out, but thank you for taking the time, especially right now when you're so busy. And this time it's not in the woods. Yeah. So the last time, the little story, the last time the Premier and I kind of saw each other for any amount of time, it was Mother's Day weekend last year, and family and I, my wife and our two daughters, decided, let's go out for a hike. So we head out to one of our great conservation areas, and we're about 20 minutes into the hike, and my wife says, there are people over there in suits and all dressed up, and what's going on over there? And then this gentleman starts walking towards us, and my wife says, I think that's Doug Ford. and then, sure enough, it was the Premier, and you were so gracious to say hello.
You then, Trevor.
So a bit of a fun story. You don't expect to run into your Premier in the woods, so to speak. Yeah. That's not a metaphor either. Yeah. So I appreciate what you said too about sort of the interconnectedness of our trade with the U.S., particularly in our agricultural sector. And I just note Mississauga, huge in food processing, and that sector, all combined, it rivals the automotive sector, and sometimes I think can come out a little bit ahead. So very important to our economy in Mississauga. You've been everywhere in the media lately, and I'm sure you haven't wanted to be for the reasons you are. I saw you on with Aaron Burnett on CNN, and we're not going to do a Jesse Waters interview here. It's all right. But I really appreciate all you've been doing. And you've announced another step to your AmCan Fortress Alliance. And Mississauga's economy, like the entire Ontario economy, is intimately connected with the United States. In the context of a possible 25% tariff levied by the U.S. on Canadian exports, could you further kind of elaborate on Ontario's strategy for preserving trade between this province and the United States?
Well, thanks so much, Trevor. First of all, it's so important that our colleagues here in this room, if you have friends, you have business partners. For example, I heard Walmart sponsored. Folks from Walmart really need to call Arkansas and tell them how important it is to make sure that we have zero tariffs, because all it does is hurt both sides of the economy. yes, is it going to hurt us? But it's going to really hurt the Americans as well. And it just doesn't make any sense at all. We're stronger together. I've always said if we build this AMCAN fortress, we can be the strongest, most resilient, safest countries in the entire world. As we see, cheap imports are coming over from China, and they're playing unfair in the schoolyard per se, Mexico. If they want a seat at the table, they're welcome, but they have to play fair, and they aren't playing fair right now. And I've always encouraged the federal government and the U.S. government, let's do a bilateral trade deal with the U.S., and then we'll do another bilateral trade deal with Mexico. It's all about communication. As I was saying when I was speaking there, every day, not just myself, my other colleagues within our caucus and all the premiers are reaching out to their counterparts in the U.S. And when I saw everyone yesterday, I said, did you hear any negative comments? Not one single negative comment. To the contrary, they want to continue a strong relationship with Canada, and that's what we're going to do. They gave me the numbers today. So all our ads, all the social media in the U.S., they've been seen by 450 million. Now keep that in mind. I said, well, there's only 350 multiple times. So those ads, if you're in Florida or Texas or California or anywhere, you cannot turn, especially in Florida, right by Mar-a-Lago, you cannot turn your TV on. We ramped it up. And we put it on Fox because we figured he watches Fox.
Big media buy in Palm Beach then, right? Okay.
You can't go on social media without seeing our ads. So it's a big impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've seen the plan. You met with Minister LeBlanc. Yesterday you met with the premiers and Prime Minister, and you really stressed the importance of being united and that it's Canada first. And we know that Premier Smith in Alberta decided not to kind of sign on to the communique and has her own provincial interests, industries to protect and make a point of that. Do you see her coming on side now that she's sent a message that she's looking out for her oil and gas industry?
Well, I just take a different approach. I respect Minister Smith, but I just believe in Canada comes first. Her oil sector is like our auto sector or our food sector, or agricultural sector. And, Newfoundland, they do 200,000 barrels a day. And if you look at Saskatchewan, they do about 450,000. They're the largest producer of uranium in the world. The U.S. couldn't survive without them. 87% of their potash keeps their agricultural sector open. So everyone has something that they're saying, hey, we may have to sacrifice a little bit. I'll just leave it at that. Country comes first, and we'll decide. Yeah.
Thank you for that. When it comes to potential stimulus from the federal government, from the provincial government, how far along are you with discussions on this topic where, if, God forbid, these tariffs do come through and we do need to stimulate the economy, what kind of magnitude are we looking at there?
It's billions. So we had that conversation around the table yesterday with the federal government, the two ministers, Minister LeBlanc and Minister Jolie, and the ambassador was there too. And they've agreed that we need to put some money into the economy. God forbid, the tariffs continue for a long period of time. It's no different than really the pandemic. We may have to put tens of billions of dollars into the economy to keep people moving, keep people afloat. Our nickel industry, we have the finest grade nickel anywhere in the world, and everyone wants our nickel. 47% of it gets shipped down to the U.S., and they can't survive without our nickel for their manufacturing and for their military, but we may have to stockpile it. Yeah, it will go up in cost, but we'll stockpile it and sell it after. But that's just one example of many that we're going to have to support. And to be very frank, I do not have the mandate to spend tens of billions of dollars right now.
Will you be looking for that mandate? in the
stay
near
tuned.
future?
We'll see what happens on January 20th or 21st. But we really do have to see what happens January 20th and 21st. I think he's going to come out of the gate real quick and start hitting us with tariffs. And he's going to try to, pay for his debt and everything else with it. But it's not working. It will not work.
Well, I guess, to put a fine point on it, the message is the impact on his own citizens and his own economy.
It's going to drive up the cost.
Yeah.
So I'll give you one example. Say someone wants to buy a pickup truck down in Texas. That's about $60,000. It was made up in Oshawa. That same pickup is going to cost $75,000. And this is what we're communicating to the elected officials down south, and they all agree. It's not good for the economy on both sides. What really bothers me is when President Trump says we don't need Canada. Well, he'd wake up real quick if the 4.3 million barrels were cut off, that 67% of energy imports go down there. Not that I'm speaking for Alberta, I just want to be clear on that. But, or a 25% tariff on the 4.3 million barrels would jack up the cost of gasoline down there by $1. You cut off uranium that everyone else in the world wants, it'd be devastating. I mentioned potash or nickel or aluminum from Quebec. But guess what? The Premier of Quebec said, I'm going to use every tool in my toolbox. Ontario said that. And every other Premier said that. So we do have a Team Canada, and hopefully Alberta
Fantastic. Fantastic. So we will wait and see, and again, thank you for all the efforts together with the other premiers and the federal government as well. Moving to another topic, and you mentioned it in your remarks, is infrastructure. It's been one of your government's top priorities since you took office in 2018. Can you outline how your government envisions eliminating Ontario's infrastructure deficit and building the infrastructure that the province needs as our population grows? How does this impact Mississauga? And I'm just going to add a little nuance to this. And the downloading of regional roads, stormwater infrastructure, waste collection services, and 2 community recycling centers to Mississauga. So this is part of the whole negotiations around region appeal and downloading of those select services. Where do you envision the restructuring of responsibilities proceeding from here between the region appeal, Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon?
Well, that's a whole story, right, Mayor, between all 3 different cities and Brampton, but I know the mayor is very, very happy about the roads. It's going to save a couple $100 million, and there's just better ways of delivering services. They told me, Mayor, and you probably have these numbers better than I do. So we looked at the garbage contracts. Now think of this: just Brampton, Mississauga, and Peel. There's 165 or some crazy number. I think it's 165 garbage contracts for 3 regions. I know there's business people in here thinking 106, how can that be possible? So those are the areas that they can look at and restructure. But I always want to tell the mayors we'll always be there. We'll always be there to support them. I know Minister Kinga Surma, Minister of Infrastructure, has announced $3 billion of water infrastructure as well that we can support. And there's other infrastructure projects that the mayor was talking about just before we got out there. So we're stepping up. And that axe cost me $30 million, by the way, just to let you know.
And just on that, with regard to municipalities, and, we're seeing, of course, their costs rise with everyone else's, and, whether it be policing services or whether it be, accommodating newcomers and that sort of thing. Have you been looking at any kind of change to formulas or how that relationship works between municipalities in the province?
Well, I just feel the province, you have the finances to do these large projects, like over at Trillium. It's the largest in the country, and it's massive. I think I've lost track, Carly. It's up towards 12 billion, somewhere around there. These are massive projects that you need support from the province, or Highway 413, or the Hazel-McCallion line as well. It's a multi-billion-dollar project, and then we're including the Loop 2. These are the areas that we're going to focus on. We're spending $28 billion on roads and highways and bridges. We're spending $70 billion on transit, be it the subways or LRTs that we're putting in right across Ontario.
Great. Thank you. Moving to sort of our fiscal health right now in the province. Final numbers from finance reflect well on the government. Your government ran a $600 million deficit, so almost nothing there, almost eliminating that in fiscal 23-24 on a budget of about $206 billion. Once the deficit is eliminated, there remain challenges with the debt because Ontario has one of the highest net debt to GDP ratios of any province
that we inherited.
Canada.
I just want to say that.
Notwithstanding an upgrade in the credit rating from one of the agencies as well. With all the pressures on government finances ranging from healthcare, infrastructure, education, economic development, will it be possible to eliminate the deficit and pay down the debt? And of course, I guess the big question mark is, will you need to do stimulus? But
yeah, so at DBRS, they gave us a credit rating increase, and so did S&P as well. I think that was the first time in 10 years, and the other one was the first time in 23 years. And I give all the credit to Peter Bethenfalvy. We have the best finance minister ever. And we've saved over $1 billion on interest just paying the debt because he outsmarted everyone in Canada. He locked in 2% a couple of years ago when everyone else was paying a lot more. So he deserves all the credit in the world. You know, when Peter came and sat down with me and showed me the fiscal outlook and said, here are some of the options. One of the options were, let's balance this year. But by the way, we got to stop a couple of these infrastructure projects. And I said, never stop infrastructure. That stimulates the economy, keeps going, and we'll balance in we'll have a surplus in 26, 27. So I told him over a matter of a year and a half, let's not push it. Let's not stop infrastructure. Because if you stop infrastructure and the roads and highways, the companies can't build the great project on the lakeshore. If they don't have the access to the infrastructure and the roads, it doesn't work.
Let alone talent, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we need to keep building, but we're always prudent fiscal managers. And if you think of this, BC doesn't have a path to balance, Quebec doesn't have a path to balance, and we all know the feds don't have a path to balance. We're the only region that actually has a path to balance, and I have all the confidence in the world we'll get there.
Great. Thank you for that additional insight. Last week, your government announced what you're calling the largest energy efficiency program in Canadian history. In tandem with that announcement, your government announced in December an expansion of the largest, this is a familiar theme here, competitive energy procurement in the province's history. So energy policy is always challenging given the need to meet environmental goals, affordability goals, and our economic goals. Can you tell us a little bit more about your government's approach to energy policy on these two fronts?
Well, thanks to Rudy, sitting right there, and Minister Lecce, we have such a strong team when it comes to energy. I always say we're an energy powerhouse. We're leaders in nuclear. We're building 4 small modular reactors, first in the G7 anywhere in the world. And the way I can describe small modular reactors, Walmart's here, it's about the size of a Walmart. And it can power up to a town of 400,000 people. So we've sold a whole bunch. Actually, just to Poland, I believe it's a $100 billion deal with Poland. Everyone wants to get a hold of them. So that's over in Darlington. They're doing a great job. Over at Pickering, we're refurbishing Pickering. We're building the first large-scale nuclear facility at Bruce Power. And then Minister Lecce made an announcement about Port Hope investing in the first nuclear facility, and I can't even remember how long, but that will stimulate another $265 billion to our GDP over the next 90 years spread out. It'll create 10,500 jobs, and it will power enough homes for 10 million homes. We have to think of the future. We're the fastest growing region in North America. Faster, the governor of Texas and Florida, they love saying we're the fastest growing state in the U.S., and they are. They have 1,000 people a day. And I said, well, that's 365,000 each state. Ontario grew faster than both of them combined last year. Over 800,000 people showed up to our province. And now it's catch up, because the 800,000, God bless them, I was out there screaming on the rooftops, we need more people. We still have 230,000 jobs to fill here in Ontario, but we just need to slow down a little bit on that because it puts a lot of pressure on our healthcare system, our education system, and on our infrastructure. I'm the first person to say I need more people, but we maxed out just last year, so keep bringing people in, but let's slow down a bit.
Great, thank you. And on the energy efficiency program, I guess the question is, why now? When I think you know, before you kind of held off doing an energy efficiency program rebates. We know our businesses are happy with it. Contractors will be working a little bit more and that sort of thing. But why now? And can you tell me a little bit about how this program is different?
Well, you have to be a visionary. You have to look at where you're going 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, no matter what infrastructure it is, especially with the energy that we need. And also, if you look at what we're building here on the data centers. So those data centers are energy suckers like you've never seen before. It's staggering, and the investments from the tech sector will go where the energy is right now. Unfortunate thing, they only employ about 5 or 10 people. They're massive, but that's where all the data is stored, and we just need the energy. But we also need it as a tool in our toolbox to make sure that we have enough energy to support. I talked to the governor of New York and the governor of Michigan and the governor of Minnesota. We keep 1.5 million lights on in those 3 states, and we have to have enough energy to support our neighbors to the south as well. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're going to make sure that we have low-cost, affordable, green, clean, reliable energy, and we're leaders in nuclear.
Great. Thank you very much for that additional insight. You mentioned data centers, and of course, one thing driving that is AI, which requires a lot of energy in those data centers. And we're a leader in AI. Just received the Nobel Prize and that sort of thing. And one area that we expect AI to play a key role is in life sciences. And we know that one of our member firms, Roche, announced an AI initiative just late last year. And just wondering, with regard to the life sciences strategy, and I know that Minister Videlli said, this is the new EV strategy. This is as important. We're going to keep pushing this. So among Canada's 10 largest cities, we look at Mississauga, we're second largest in terms of life sciences. And that success is partially due to good policies locally and provincially to build up the industry. So how will the Ontario Life Sciences strategy, now in its sort of second phase, help Mississauga take our life sciences industry to the next level?
Well, we've seen over $5 billion in investments from companies like AstraZeneca or Roche, and there's a whole list of Sanofi that's not in Mississauga, but down the street over $1 billion, Moderna. And GKS, are they going to invest too? They're investing? He's saying yes. He's giving me the nod. So
he's open to a discussion. He's open to a discussion.
Yeah, but also spec labs, and there's over 70,000 people that are employed at over 2,000 companies, and obviously a lot of them are small companies, but they're contributing. But the key thing is making sure we get approvals for new life-saving drugs, life-saving cancer drugs, that in Canada, we're the slowest in the G7. So we need to change that. I brought that forward to all the premiers and Health Canada. We need to be the quickest to approve it until we can get these life-saving drugs to people that need it.
Great. Hear, hear. That ends sort of the question portion of today's event, but I would like to give you an opportunity for some closing remarks, if you would, Premier.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. And I appreciate everyone coming out today. It's going to be a real Team Canada effort that we need from everyone. Every single company plays a big key factor. I'll mention the retailers, the food retailers, the big five that do $147 billion of revenue here, and what we need them to do, and we need every person in Canada to do that makes a difference. Yes, we're going to tariff, we're going to do everything, but when you're going down the aisle of a shopping store, take a quick peek on where it's made. And I'm not going to mention the retailer, but I'm going to mention one thing. You know, I found out, everyone's heard of Primo Pasta, right? Everyone's heard of Vital Pasta. I'm just naming two of the bigger ones. Well, I found out one retailer is going to Turkey to buy no-name pasta. Why can't those two companies do no-name? That could create a company for 100 jobs. And then the film and the packaging that goes with it. That is just one example. I walked through, you know, one of the stores, and not the grocery retail is another one, and I saw a paddle. There was last summer, and there's a big Made in USA sticker on it. And I'm thinking, we make paddles in Ontario, and we make paddles in Quebec. I know these are simple, but you can onboard a lot. When I was in Ottawa, I couldn't help myself. I ran into Costco, sat down with the folks there, and said, start onboarding. Start sourcing Canadian-made and Ontario-made products. And if you can't source them, we will source them for you, because it makes a massive difference. Imagine if we could onboard $30 or $40 billion just by changing the procurement a little bit. And I also mentioned, and a couple of people are doing it, the producers, look for the maple leaf, look for the Ontario-made or Canadian-made. I know Dempster's is doing it, and some other companies, compared to made outside of Canada. But we can play a huge role, and I just want to thank each and every one of you. We are going to feel a few bumps on the road, but I can tell you one thing. With the Team Canada approach, we're unstoppable. We're an economic powerhouse, not just in North America, around the world. I talked to Vic Fideli, my Minister of Economic Development, along with Nina, on the table coming in to this year. He has $40 billion worth of deals that are ready to be signed. So it's good news, because when you create the environment and conditions, companies will come here. And the number one selling feature is the talent we have here. We have talent second to none. You mentioned the tech sector. So the kids that graduate aren't hopping on the plane going to Silicon Valley. They employ about 388,000. We're growing at over 350% faster than Silicon Valley in the tech sector, and the deep tech sector, as they call it. We employ, again, over 425,000. We have the brightest, smartest minds in the world right here in Ontario. I want to thank you, and God bless each and every one of you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Premier. We'll just have... And with that, I would like to invite our great partner and colleague, Brian Sutherland, Vice President of Development for Argo Development Corporation and President